teacher guys, so if you guys can move forward, we sure would appreciate you guys moving up a few rows for us. But if everyone could take your seats, grab the last drink. If you need a drink, we'll also be out and about. People will be asking you if you need a drink, so you can also ask for a drink. We'll have people back there supplying as well. We get started, we sure do appreciate everyone that came out tonight for the fan forum as we talk about the season that wrapped up and the season that's going to be coming up here actually in a few months. So we do appreciate everyone that came out tonight. We have a lot of information to give you guys, and a lot of questions have been asked by those who not only here but also have submitted a lot of questions online, because there are a lot of questions going into the 2015 season. So we do appreciate you guys coming out. My name's Jack Dammerl. I'm the radio play-by-play voice of the Energy. It was a great opportunity for me to step in. I've known the ownership group for a long time, John Allgood. I've known him for years, worked with him, and we're on a roll here in Oklahoma City with soccer. It's a great venue coming up that we'll be in 2015. We have a great bunch of players here tonight. If you haven't met some of the players, a bunch of them are here. And I tell you, I've been around professional sports for quite a while, and I've never met a bunch of great guys more than this. And so it takes time to introduce yourself to some of these players. I know they'll appreciate it, and we appreciate them having them here in the Oklahoma City community. We do have a great program tonight. We have a great panel here. Of course, we'll start here on my left. Jason Hawkins, of course, with the administration. He handles all the player personnel stuff, our travel arrangements, along with his assistant, Sandy Richardson, does a great job. Bob Funk, of course, with the ownership group. And, of course, there's the head coach, Jimmy Nilsson, who we have a lot of good questions for Jimmy tonight. So we do appreciate you guys coming out. I'm going to start with Bob Funk, who's going to give some opening remarks for tonight's forum.
First of all, I want to take the opportunity to thank all of you for being here. It's great to have such a dedicated and loyal fan base. We're really excited to continue to promote the brand and what bringing professional soccer to Oklahoma City means. Our goals have always been very lofty. We want to take professional soccer to the highest level that it can in Oklahoma City, and that includes the MLS, and we will work towards that goal very diligently. So we're very excited to have you out tonight to get a little feedback, to talk a little bit. We're broadcasting this as well, if you didn't know. So we're not just here, but we're all out on the internet at this point in time. My partner, Tim McLaughlin, he's the greatest partner in the world. I can't speak enough about him. Very involved in the soccer community, has a great heart, great value system. Really happy to have him as my partner in the Energy. He couldn't be here tonight. He is celebrating his son's birthday. So he called me up and said, "Hey, do you really need me here?" I said, "No, go celebrate your son's birthday. That's very admirable. I have a good time, and we can take care of that." And then, I recently have turned over it's not, when we talk about the Energy, we operate a lot of other brands underneath Prodigal, the company, the operating company. and you've gotten to know or hopefully gotten to meet some of the staff here tonight. Recently, I just appointed a president, a guy to run the day-to-day operations for me because I wasn't able to be there on a day-to-day basis with my other responsibilities. And it's a guy that has a long history in not only special events but sports as well. Hopefully you got to meet him at some point tonight. But Jeff Ewing, if you'd stand up. This is Jeff Ewing. He's the new president of Prodigal. His former job was the director of the U.S. Senior Open at Oak Tree this year. He lived in the market for 3 years and decided that he wanted to stay and put down roots. So I couldn't think of anybody better that had the qualifications and the history that we needed to lead the company to come and take the helm. So very proud to have him on board, done a great job. Jason Hawkins obviously has been our GM. This is the first year. He, I think, out of the frying pan and into the fire was a little bit of an understatement, but does a great job as the GM and is getting more and more involved on the business and the branding side. Very excited to have him on board. And obviously, Jimmy, we couldn't have asked for anybody better. And extremely excited to have these two gentlemen leading the charge and the brand and the support that they have with the other leadership in the other company. So very proud to be a part of this and to have the energy have as much support as it has. You guys have been great and really are the roots of what we're trying to accomplish here. And just thank you very much for being here. I greatly appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Bob, and appreciate your support of soccer. Great soccer people here tonight, so we do appreciate it. I haven't really felt this important with all the lights and stuff since I stopped anchoring the news at Channel 4 with all the wireless pieces, so I feel pretty important tonight. So now I want to introduce Jason Hawkins. Jason's going to say a few words and also has a special award for one of our players tonight. Jason?
Again, I want to just echo, first of all, what Bob had to say there. In terms of our first year, we couldn't have done it without the fans. When people talk about in the new markets, there's 3 or 4 new teams coming in, and every single team has come and watched us play. Some talked about our performance on the field, some talked about our front office, but there's one thing that they always talked about, and that was the environment at the stadium and what the fans were already doing for us. So we couldn't have done it without the fans. And I know one guy who's told me that multiple times, and as he got ready to ink a multiple-year deal and kind of make Wales not his home and Wilmington not his home, and really become a figurehead for the club. I remember the conversations we had when we were first looking at him, and there were a few mixed reviews out there, and everybody who really, really knew him deep down inside, though, said, this is a guy you want. This is a guy you want to be not just a part of the first-year team, but a part of kind of the backbone of your team. So if I could have Gareth Evans, better known as Gaz, come on up. One thing that's always been exciting, and I tell this about people who get on board with us early, it's all about firsts. And so I've been through more firsts in this last year, but I know there's a whole lot of firsts that are going to continue on. But Gaz was fortunate enough to be named to the All-League second team. So he is our first end-of-the-year awards winner for the club. So again, that's something that can never be taken away from him. We wanted to present his trophy, give him a chance to talk a little bit to the fans as well, because he loves being on the mic. So first of all, congratulations, Gaz. Couldn't happen to a better guy.
Thank you very much. Not really sure what to say, but just want to say, first of all, thanks to Bob and obviously Tim as well, who came later on bringing the team to Oklahoma City. And then obviously thanks to Jimmy, Chris, and James for bringing me here and being part of the team. And then, of course, the guys. Just couldn't have done anything like this without the boys. So that was obviously huge. And obviously thanks to the fans as well. Obviously, I think for a first-year team, said it many times before, we far exceeded expectations, and the fan support was unbelievable. So obviously looking to build on that now and next year become a championship winning team as well. So no, thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Again, so thank you, Gaz, and I know what everybody else would say to you, and that's keep getting stuck in there.
All right, thank you, Jason. One question for me, Gaz, real quick, is since you're going to be here multiple years, when does that accent change to an Okie accent? No? Okay, all right. I just thought I'd ask. So, all right, we're going to move to some discussion now. This is what everyone wants. We have some good questions that were submitted. I'm going to start with the head coach, Jimmy Nilsson, over there, and he's going to, Jimmy, can you recap the season for us? What went right? What went wrong? What do you see that was a difference maker this year for a first-year franchise?
Well, overall, I think the first year as a new team, it was pretty successful. If you look at the standings with 7 games left, we're in the 5th place. We just missed the playoffs. That was pretty disappointing. But if you look overall during the season, I think we had a good season. We had a very, very short time to get a team together. I started this job here January 1st, and we had our first practice February 17th. And that was a very, very short time. Very busy time, but very exciting time too. And I think with that short time, we had to pull the team together. I'm not standing here bragging. I think we did a pretty good job. We had to make some tough decisions here after the season. Got rid of a few guys. We kept a very good core of guys. We have 8 guys here today, and I'll just quickly update where we're standing right now. We have Michael Thomas on contract. We have Kyle Gregg on contract. Gareth Evans, Mark Howard, new player Jesus Sanchez, Cyprian Hendrick, Peebo Due, Klagi. Anyone else in here I'm missing from today? We have Danny Delgado, who's in LA on a vacation right now. We signed 2 players, Casey Townsend from Tampa Bay, and we have Danny Koenig, a Danish guy, who will join the team in February, where we start preseason. Any specific questions?
No, you guys, you've already started for next year. You have a couple scrimmages coming up this week. It's going to be in the cold, but again, you've already started practicing, and you guys don't stop, really.
No, I would like to continue a little bit longer, but the results were not there. We brought in 12 trialists. Going to be here for this week. We'll have a game Wednesday night in Edmond. We'll have a game Saturday night in Norman, and it'll give us a very good chance to look at some players. We as a staff have a plan, and hopefully we can succeed with that. Have the roster in place when we start up February 2nd. So this is a good opportunity for us to look at some guys to fill out the rest of the spots in the roster.
Jimmy, you said we just missed out on the playoffs, which we did, but a lot of player personnel changes throughout the season, a lot of injuries late in the season, guys being called up to Kansas City, which we have a great affiliate with them. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's a part of the game when you're part of affiliation. We knew that when we went into it. I think Kansas City have been very unlucky with injuries, and that hurt us a little bit too. They got down here and found their place here and did pretty well for the team. Got called back. We had to put in new guys. I think overall the guys did a good job. Some of the guys were put out in positions they were not used to. They all went on the field game after game after game with a big heart.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy, very much. We'll be back with you here in just a second. Jason Hawkins, on my thing, it says, I don't know whether this was intended solely for me. It says beer. Everyone who knows me knows my favorite drink is beer. Did you mean that for me or what? No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, Jack, can I get you a beer?
Afterwards, okay, afterwards. Jason, a question submitted by Ian Ansley. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Will there be beer at Taft Stadium? Will there be good local beer at Taft Stadium? Can you comment on any of that?
Absolutely. It's funny when I look back and I look at the survey results over the course of the last year, and literally you can still go in on my office wall, and from the very first survey, I had the results from that. And I started trying to tick off every single item that I could to say, oh, we fixed that one. Yep, we took care of that. Yep, we've addressed that. And there were probably 2 or 3 that I wasn't able to cure during the course of that year. And one of the 2 that repeatedly kept coming back up was, you really need to have beer at a soccer game. And so we've obviously made that move to be in a situation where, yes, to answer that definitively, there would be lots of beer at Taft would be my guess. Probably the only booze I'll get is, as we say, it's 3.2, but welcome to Oklahoma, right? But the positive is they fixed a few things where craft beers are starting to come into play at the 3.2 level. So we're looking at all different types of beer relationships and sponsorships and things like that right now. But if you actually go out and look at the fan survey over the last, I wanted to be able to come in here as the GM and be able to answer every single question. You never want to have that one where you go, we're still talking about it. We're still thinking about it. But the reality is, if you think about it, we didn't even have a coach last year at this point in time. So while it seems like with all the items there's a fast and furious race to get there, we've still got quite a bit of time. And so what's important for us here in the off season is really continuing to figure out what the fans want. And so different sections of the fans want different things. Families want different things. Supporter groups want different things. And so rather than us just assuming and saying, oh, we know exactly what they like or exactly what they want, I think we sent out a 3-question survey over the course of the last week and asked people, and one of them was, what are your favorite types of beer? And that's exactly what we're trying to figure out is, what do people want? What I know is we'll have all different types. So will we have domestics? Will we have crafts? Will we have international beers? Absolutely, all of those types of things inside the parameters. But we also know that there's definitely an affinity towards local craft beers and those types of things. There definitely are lots of groups that we're talking to. But again, at the same time, we don't even want to assume that some of those answers come from the club. It could be that one of the supporters groups comes out and says, no, we're really trying to work on a deal that's our own personality here. We don't need you in the middle of that. We need you to help work with it. So we're going to be asking a lot of those questions about this particular topic. But I can answer definitively, yes, it will be there. And that that's not only been heard, but it will be a focus for us as well, because again, it was one of the main things that we heard kind of throughout the course of the year. Will it be done responsibly for the fans and for the families and all that? Absolutely. We operate events all the time, and so we understand all the sides that have to go out there with it, but it just kind of goes with soccer, doesn't it?
Any beer in the press box? I'm just kidding.
Right after you get off.
Yeah. All right, Bob, next question is for you. With all the expansion going on in the MLS, this question comes in, is it true the Energy is getting a downtown stadium? Is there a location? And is it because we hope to bring an MLS to Oklahoma City?
I might have to have you read those back to me. And it just occurred to me also, because I don't necessarily pay attention. If any of you, at Prodigal, we're in the business of sports, so we like to have fun. One of the community initiatives that we do on one of our other brands on the Barron side is Movember. So you see all my staff, all the staff with facial hair and mustaches and everything. It's not necessarily a regular occurrence, but that's why. I want to give everybody an understanding. So this ridiculous broom that's on my face is due to that. But to answer your question, okay, so our number one, our goal has always been, when we established the Energy brand and wanted to bring professional soccer to Oklahoma City, the goal was always get to the MLS. We want to measure ourselves against that goal. So everything that we did, there was a conscious choice to measure ourselves against that goal. So everything from our logo, the way we produce the games, to the way we communicate on all levels, social media, marketing, or otherwise, we took a very, very conscious approach to make careful decisions along those lines because we wanted to be able to compare ourselves to other MLS teams and know that we could stand up against, the brand could stand up against those teams in the future. So that was really our whole goal in pursuing that. Along came with that, as we all know, as part of that process, you got to have your own stadium. It's unequivocal, it's been proven that time and time again with the MLS teams that it's a critical component of their success, not just in the short term, but in the long term health of the franchise. So we knew that and recognized that. But we also knew we had to start off, biting off in small chunks. That's why we chose USL Pro, because we thought it was the best foot forward to get us to that, to our overall goal. And so we've been taking these steps ever since. And so we started out in Pribble Stadium knowing that we had a smaller capacity, but we wanted to be able to prove ourselves there and prove that this is a viable product and a viable brand and something we could advance to. We've proven that the first year with the number of sellouts, 8 sellouts, 101% capacity, 5 consecutive sellouts. I think the only reason we didn't sell at the other games is people didn't want to stand on the south end for that matter. So we've moved into Taft. We've doubled our capacity. We're seeing great results from the ticket sales side. I think we're going to continue to see good results as we continue to push the product. And we've got a beautiful new stadium that has been recently renovated to the tune of almost $12 million. So we're really excited about that. We think that gives us that next step to prove ourselves to the city that we need a stadium. We need a soccer-specific stadium downtown. We think that makes sense. We've looked at 5 different locations. 3 of them are downtown, 2 of them in ancillary areas, 1 being in Norman, 1 being in Edmond, and just to make sure that we're doing the appropriate amount of due diligence. And I think we've taken a really good look at it, and I think we've identified a couple locations that we think make a lot of sense, and that I think will serve the entire Oklahoma City community in the best fashion. So we're pretty excited about that opportunity. You know, we've got a long road to walk down. We're currently doing feasibility studies. We'll continue to do feasibility studies that pertain not only to the stadium, but to the MLS piece as well, to make sure we're making the right decision about when Oklahoma City is ready to make that jump. And so we'll continue with those as the years go by, and you know, be able to share some of those results. And so we're really working very diligently to make sure we're making the right decisions, because it isn't just about the team and about the franchise. It's about the Oklahoma City community. Tim and I got involved in this for that very reason. We want to make sure that everybody's involved, that we're as inclusive as possible to making the right decisions for the Oklahoma City community, and not just us, not us making the decisions, but everybody around the table, and being as inclusive as possible to make sure that it makes sense to get a stadium. We're going to put it in the appropriate area. We're going to tie in with the appropriate committees. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it that we're excited about, but we also want to make sure that we're planning appropriately.
And this follow-up question kind of goes with that. So the stadium will be ready in 2015. Taft, what are some of the cool amenities besides beer that you'll have that you'll have?
That's the number one. I mean, come on. You know, we are hoping. There's all indications that it'll be ready by our first game. You know, construction schedules, weather. You all know how, you know, wait 5 minutes and the weather in Oklahoma City changes at any given point in time. So we hope we don't run into too many issues there, and I don't think we will. I think we'll be okay. But I think we're going to have a stadium that is going to be updated yet and present, but yet very historical. We're looking at a lot of technology initiatives, not dissimilar to Kansas City and the way they've designed their stadium from a technology standpoint. We'll obviously have beer. We're looking at having suites. We've put in 3,000 chair backs on the west side that I think you've all seen the renderings that are going to really make the stadium look very unique. We've got some great ancillary areas not only for the family and for the family fun zone piece, but we've got areas for the supporter groups as well. We've got a whole area kind of behind the suites that we're designing currently and working at the details that will be a very unique, exclusive environment for some club members. We think that's going to really do a lot for us. State-of-the-art press box. Tim and I cringe every time we think about how much the press box actually cost at this point.
We do thank you, though.
But very excited about that. You know, we're working on the video board plan. We've looked at a couple different locations and trying to assess what the best place for that piece will be. You know, tailgating opportunities, great parking opportunities. Just going to be a really unique environment, and a unique soccer environment that we're going to be able to create and do a lot of things with. It's just, I'm trying to run through my mind. Is there anything I've missed at this point?
Well, how about this? Because it's going to be used both as football and soccer, it's not a soccer-specific stadium, so there will be football games in the fall, but they won't have football lines on them during the soccer season. They're washable.
Yeah, it's washable paint. Essentially, what we'll be doing is, once our season begins, because I don't think they're playing anything in the springtime at that point in time, we'll be taking all the football lines out, and we're creating our own soccer-specific field at that point. And so we'll take all the lines out. It'll be ours up until, you know, roughly football season begins. We'll have to do some conversions probably at that point, but it'll be we'll make it as soccer specific as we can, knowing that we also share it with the high school teams in Oklahoma City.
I'm going to move to Jason, but I'm going to keep on the stadium for a moment. Of course, soccer does bring out some language, as we know. As a referee, I can tell you it brings out language at times. So,
They deserve it, though. They deserve it, though.
Not me, of course. Is anything being done to clean up some of the language that sometimes we may hear from coming out of the stands?
You know, obviously, again, I talked about the surveys that we go through, and we work with every facet of our fans kind of throughout the season. So there's nothing that I say up here that's really a surprise to too many folks in terms of the things that people see as positives and the things that people see as negatives. And the reality is we've got multiple demographics that we serve with our game. So to be able to come into Oklahoma City and try and say, we're just going to take one demographic and fill that stadium up, and that's going to be our niche group, it would never happen inside of Oklahoma City. And so we have to take a multifaceted approach, but we also have to know what our priorities are, and we have to know what affects the game environment and all those different types of things. I'd be lying if I said on surveys we didn't hear things about language. That's part of the reason the questions start to come up. The reality is, one, we are in Oklahoma City and in Oklahoma as well, so it tends to be a little bit of a conservative culture, and we get that. But that's also part of the culture that we have here. So what we've been really doing is trying to work with those target groups kind of throughout. A couple of things that you'll see come about, and also to kind of go back to Bob's point about what our bigger, loftier goals are. We've also started studying what are some of the things that can be seen as negatives or that the MLS is trying to take on as issues. And that is one of the issues that even the MLS has been trying to battle for years and years. So over the course of the offseason, we are going to be working with the supporter groups to kind of talk about a true fan code of conduct. But I think anybody who knows our ownership and saw how we handled and worked with our fans last year too knows that we're not the Gestapo. We're not there to try and be just the cosmic killjoy and not let people enjoy it in their own environment. The first thing that we have really positive for us is we have a heck of a lot more seating, and we have a heck of a lot more just room and space and things that we can do inside that stadium. So we think that's going to be very, very helpful. The reality was last year, it didn't matter if you said to someone, I don't know if you want to quite sit in that section. If that was the only seat that was left, then that was where they were going to buy a ticket and want to see. So you've seen us now add things like family zones, which are strategically located. You've seen where the kids zone is located inside of it. But at the same time, we're not just taking a total hands-off approach, maybe like we did. We've learned a lot here in that first year. We've learned that by interacting with clubs that are trying to make their way into the MLS and had to deal with some of those issues as well. And even as we've talked with maybe those who were a little bit suspect as to why some of that stuff was going on, and they were all about creating an authentic culture, but they also had the same end goals in mind. And so we've talked a lot to them about how can we start to use that positive energy? How can we start to not only knock out a little bit of that, but how can we get creative and have more fun? The funniest thing about it typically was the best chants and the best things that went on actually had more of a humor than they had a language to them. But even as I've talked to our supporter groups, they're growing. I mean, it's a new experience for them to be a part of. So a lot of what you saw in the past was them creating and still learning about their own culture. But we work with those leadership groups to try and create something that ultimately all of our fans will enjoy. To answer it directly, will you see some sort of a code of conduct that becomes a beginning set of rules? Absolutely. But it's also going to be put in front of those groups and something that we feel like they can buy into and be happy with. And then, again, we'll continue to learn as well. We know that. Do we think that all of it will ever go away? No. If you've gone to any sports event, there's always a little bit of that where people get caught up in the passion. Do we want to take the passion and the excitement away from that? No. But the funny story I always tell, and I tell it to the supporter groups as I sit down with them, on one side of the survey, I have a few people saying, I really don't like that language. I really don't like what they were saying. And then on the other side of the survey, they say, but how can we bring their energy? How can we bring their excitement over to our side of the stadium? How can we have similar things to what they're doing going there? So we've spent a lot of time here in the off season, and we continue to have those conversations all the time to figure out how to create that best environment that everybody wants to be a part of, but again, still allows people to enjoy themselves and experience the game that they want to. And we do want an authentic soccer environment. When you talk about soccer specific, it's not necessarily the cheapest thing in the world to flip a stadium, take out the goalposts, remove the paint, but that's a commitment that we made as we came back to the market to say we know as we talk with true fans of the game, some of those pieces that are very important and make the game authentic to them. And so we're committed to bringing about that type of experience.
You talked about the great support group. You talked about chants during soccer games. The next question for Jimmy from Ian Ansley. Jimmy, do you like it when we sing, "We have the biggest Jimmy"? I'm not sure what that means, but anyway, if you can answer that cleanly.
I had a few people explaining to me what it really meant.
I left you speechless now, huh?
In the beginning, I actually thought it was because they thought I was getting a little chubby. But when I got that translated a little bit more, of course you're a man, you're probably like that. Yeah. I don't mind it at all.
Next question, right?
Next question.
Talk about, okay, we'll move on for that, Jimmy. Let's talk about what you're going to do here in this off-season. It's your first off-season. You have a full off-season to take care of business. What are your plans for the off-season?
Well, it's going to give us what we didn't have early in this year here, time to do some more research and go a little deeper in the individual players. I'm very pleased with the core of guys we kept here. We're trying to build around that core of guys. Spend a lot of hours in the office looking at guys on video. Since the season stopped a little too early, I probably guess we've been offered around 200 to 300 players, and we're giving everyone a little look. So we have good time, and hopefully we'll find the right players that'll match into this group of guys here. We're spending a lot of time.
How does expansion of the USL affect that? Because now you have several more teams vying for the same players.
Yeah, it's good. It's going to make it more competitive. We got to keep ourselves on the toes all the time. I think we got a pretty good network. 2 assistants, myself and Jason. We know a lot of people, and every time a player gets available, we're getting a lot of players offered, and we'll see.
Next question is for Bob. Bob, this was submitted online by Simeon Huppin. I believe that's how you say his name. Is the Oklahoma City Energy partnership with Tulsa meant to be Oklahoma City trying for an MLS team in the future and Tulsa being their minor league team for player development? Plus, I'll just add to that for my own, how does that work with an ownership group be involved with 2 teams in the same league that may be rivals at some point down the road?
Yeah, that has a long and sordid history as to why that occurred. It does have the ancillary benefit of that possibly being the case, but it was not at all the driving force behind it. When we started the Oklahoma City Energy and wanted to put the team here, we immediately we're establishing a beachhead for USL Pro at that point. We're the only team in the central area, and we're taking a huge risk by doing it. But as we walked kind of down the path and started putting things together, we started to think, you know what, why don't we put a team in Tulsa as well? It makes a lot of sense. We felt like it would be a good option. And really, as we went through the announcement process of our franchise in July of not 13, it was 13, yeah. So July of 13, we were putting some things together and kind of getting them lined out. And John Allgood in our office got a phone call from a friend of his, Mike Malega, who worked for the Drillers. And those of you who don't know John worked in minor league baseball for the Redhawks when we owned that team for many years. And they had a good conversation and wanted us to come up and see him and talk to him about USL Pro at that point. And so we sat down and talked, and were able to kind of put something together that we thought made a lot of sense with a brand that was already established, a group that's highly professional and understands how to operate teams, and had a beautiful facility that could do, we thought, for some very special things, albeit not soccer specific. In the meantime, until they really got settled in Tulsa to build their own stadium, thought that was really a good option. And so, as we kind of walked down the path, we had negotiated with USL Pro at that time, and had put together a kind of a deal for the markets in and around Oklahoma City, and were able to sit down and kind of work it out with Tulsa, and they were on board, and it was great. And we felt like we had grasped, we had had a lot of, I guess I can use this word, learnings over 2-3 years of our own process of negotiating with 3 different facilities before we finally got settled into McGuinness for our lease, really learning about the Oklahoma City market and the soccer community within it. We had so much knowledge built up there that we felt like it was a good idea to partner with Tulsa and help guide them down that path. We got to know USL Pro very intimately at that point. Felt like that was a good path for us to run down, and we're so fortunate to get have great partners up there. As far as turning it into our development team, if we ever get MLS, you know, what I anticipate happening is going to be pretty stiff competition out of Tulsa for an MLS franchise. There's going to be a lot there. I think a lot of support there for their team and for our team. I think the rivalry is going to be fantastic. That was the real benefit of putting a team in Tulsa for both of us, was that rivalry that we can create, and that you know, through our scheduling, hopefully we can create some sort of competitive cup that we can put into play. So just a whole lot of ancillary benefits to that, and just having him up the road and in such a great facility. So if as successful as I believe we're both going to be, I think we're going to be both looking at the prize, which will be, you know, an MLS franchise, and we'll you know, at Oklahoma City will really have to come together in order to make it happen and to get it here.
All right. Next question for Jason. Jason, we're going to switch subjects here a little bit. How many soccer camps will there be for youth, and any other programs that are planned for training? This comes from John Clavo. I believe that's how you say it. Who submitted this?
Okay. You know, this year, obviously, with all the initiatives kind of on the professional side and the schedule of putting a team together, we knew we wanted to get into the youth market. Really, what we tried to do was just supplement out at the clubs over the last year. Again, because we have a lot of good youth soccer clubs and those types of things. And as you've seen with our approach, really, we've tried to work with all of those rather than come in and be a competitive force against them. But what we've done really over the course of the last year is spend a lot of time talking to them and also just surveying the market in terms of what maybe some of the shortfalls are, and even really what the draw for that was. So the first thing we did was just put together a couple of camps in this last season just to see what the feedback was like. And I can tell you that it was resounding that the demand was both there for it, and then the product that we were able to put out was very well received as well. Not just by the actual people who were taking it on, but the clubs were receptive to that concept as well of us being in kind of the camp business per se. So we're currently aligning some staff and those types of things to really be able to come in January and put together kind of a full calendar year of what a camp schedule would look like. Obviously, a lot of that's about being able to get into facilities and work with them on their different types of things that they have going on as well. But the one thing that we've really committed is we want to continue to take that product all around to the communities, not just say, hey, we've got 2 camps here at this facility, everybody come to us. We want to continue, I mean, even when you talk about our exhibition games that are coming up, a lot of people might look at that and go, so you're going to go to Norman and play inside their youth environment at one of their tournaments? Absolutely, because we want to bring the game to those people. There's 165 teams there that are looking at that, and we want them to, not only to experience it, but really to experience it from an arm's length, because we feel like that's where the real relationships, where the real connection, where they really fall in love with it, which is what we want for them to do. But then there also are the beginning movements towards what some would call academy. I get asked that question all the time. Are you going to have an academy? My first question back is, well, it depends on what you mean by an academy, because to 15 different people, that means 15 different things. So for some, that means 8 to 10-year-olds. For some, that means, are you going to have a team right underneath the professional team for kind of those guys that are right on the fringe and are the next elite players? And again, what we've committed to do is to keep filling in the market in the places that we feel like that there's a real need. So one of the first things we're looking at here in the next season is rolling out a goalkeeper academy. When you start to look around at the resources that we've got kind of inside of our bailiwick, I mean, and not just with Jimmy, but with Richie as the assistant coach, really. But believe it or not, you probably don't know it, but this guy actually doesn't take care of the goalkeepers day in and day out. That was actually, when you talk about probably the funniest story, that was the first thing he told me he wanted to hire when he came on. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. I've got to hire a goalkeeper coach? So again, we're looking at a goalkeeper academy, and then really looking at kind of the technical and skills side and some of those things that maybe the clubs don't have the time or the resources to put together. But then I would say, that next move for us really is to start to say, what are the things that Oklahoma City has not been able to land yet? And whether that's a development academy, whether that's ECNL, whether that's different types of things like that, we want to continue to supplement that environment. But we also want to help raise the clubs up as well. So rather than just coming in and saying, hey, you guys don't do a good enough job, we want to find a way to work with them and actually raise their product up so that even when that player's not there in the long run, 8 years from now, they've left it better when they found it. because that's really a common theme for us, whether we're dealing with facilities, whether we're dealing with the city, whether we're dealing with youth clubs. We want to just try and leave it better than when we found it. So we'll definitely have those things. Again, January for us, and everybody also says, well, why don't you go ahead and schedule those out? Obviously, a lot of our resources are still dedicated to the men's team, so we've got to get that schedule out there first, and then we can then start to schedule things in and around that. Because the one common question, or the one common thing that I've heard from most people at our camps is, I can't believe all your players are out there all the time. We thought one of them would come in for 30 minutes or an hour, but we're really, again, committed to having our guys in and around and actually helping be the product, not just be a poster child for it. So.
All right, I'm going to stay with you, Jason. Danielle Higginbotham submitted a question. I'm going to kind of expound on it a little bit first. Oklahoma City, we know, is a great sports market. I think one thing that people like in Oklahoma City are players who return year after year after year. Although we want all of our players in MLS, Oklahoma City loves those guys who are committed here, and so because they feel close to them. So how many multi-year players can you sign, or will you sign?
You know, again, I think if you'd asked us that probably 9 months ago, we would have said, oh, we're going to have, 12, 13, 14 guys that we want to do that with. We realized in the first year, as we're learning, did we have all the right guys as quickly as we pulled it together? No. And if we had the crystal ball that we could get it right on every single player, we'd probably be the scouts for Chelsea and whatnot, not for the Oklahoma City Energy at this point, because nobody knows 100% of the ones that you're going to land. But for us, it was important to start to build a backbone and build a community team. And what I mean by that is guys that are known as a part of the Oklahoma City Energy, not just a step or a stop along the way. So you started to see that this year, and you're starting to hear of more of those deals. A lot of that comes down, though, like I said, to where do we see that guy. Now, even if it's the guy that has the potential to go on to the MLS, or that we feel like he should be there in the next 2 to 3 years, if I can get him on a multi-year deal, absolutely, because I'm probably going to make some money off of him at a bare minimum as he moves on, right? But a lot of that, it deals with where do we feel like we're at in the total team cycle, because same thing, we don't want to have 15, 16, 17 guys coming out of contract all at the same time, because then have the potential of starting over from kind of square one. But it also takes the interest of the player. And sometimes, this is where I feel like you'll see the tendency go, we have to get people into the Oklahoma City market first before we can sell them on the long run. I can promise you, as Mark Howard came along, this Oklahoma City probably isn't quite what he thought it would be when he first landed here, because he and I have had those conversations. I mean, he just came from Orlando, he'd just come from LA, he'd come from all these sexy, glorious places, and he was probably going, I don't know if I'm even going to like this. But people fall in love with it as they're here too. So a lot more of the guys, after they're there for the first year, and then after, to be honest with you, they experience our fan base and experience what we've got going on here, that's when they're willing to say, absolutely, I can see myself playing here, I can see myself coaching here, I can see myself being here for the long term. But it's also a little bit of a change, to be honest with you, in some of the USL Pro model that we're trying to change. So we continue to try and raise that level inside of USL Pro. So whether that's having guys here for year-round training as a team rather than being on an 8-month contract and then kind of figuring it out for 4 months, or it's signing guys to multi-year deals and saying, no, we're vested in you and you're vested in us and we're going to go through this partnership together. Those are definitely things that we're committed to. So I can't say an exact number, but every single time he comes to me and says, yeah, that's a guy I want in for the long run, then we're going to go try and make that happen. Again, can't say we'll be able to do that with every single player, but I can say that thus far, most of the guys who've wanted that, we've been able to make that happen organizationally as well. And to give you a little bit of an example, there's a name that was thrown out there that hadn't been released yet, but that was actually one of the requests that came to us for the first time of a guy that we'd been soliciting back in February of a year ago, and part of the contingency instead was, no, I don't want to be just a stop along the way. I want to land myself there for a while and be a part of the club. So that spoke volumes to us in terms of the kind of view of players out in the market and wanting to be a part of Oklahoma City going forward.
We have Blake Hefner. Is that not sexy?
It's windy.
You're right. Next question for Jimmy. Let's keep on that roll a little bit. Jimmy, talk about your affiliation with Sporting Kansas City, how that works, and how that will work next year. Or let's talk about how it will work this year. Let's talk about how it worked this year.
Well, there's a big chance that we'll be affiliated with Sporting Kansas City next year.
Sorry. I had the question.
And there is a big chance that we'll play a game against Sporting Kansas City as well.
Nice.
And probably at home. I think that'll be very, very exciting. my dream, my hope is that the opening game at the stadium could be against Sporting Kansas City.
Yeah.
I think that could be pretty awesome. The affiliation, you know, Sporting Kansas City got affiliated with Fluminense in Brazil. We have 2 of those players here right now. Like last year, we will probably get 2 to 3 guys from Kansas City, and hopefully the Brazilian guys are the real deal too.
You know, they had a lot of injuries, like you said. They took some of our players. Kevin Ellis played great up there, was, I guess, player of the week a couple times. Of course, John Kempen had some great games up there. So there's some history with taking those players and our players going up there performing well.
Yeah, I think they did pretty well. Kevin Ellis became a part of the team directly from here. Kempen came up and played some games as well. Mikey Lopez did extremely well too. You know, sad for us that Sporting Kansas City got those injuries because they were getting settled here and did very well for the team. And, you know, it's a part of the game.
All right, we're going to switch subjects, but we're going to start with you since you're already up and you have the microphone from Dylan McDaniel. What were some of the biggest obstacles you had to overcome as a young organization from a coaching standpoint from you?
You know, I would hope we could have a little bit more time in the beginning of the season to get the team together.
You were winning a championship, Jimmy.
I want to win a championship again, and I wanted to do it here with Energy FC. And I truly believe that we have a competitive team for next season. But, you know, it's going to be a big challenge with probably around 24 teams in the league. And it's going to be a handful, but with a little bit of luck and the wind is blowing our way, I think we could be an outsider.
Bob, how about from an ownership standpoint, what were some of the obstacles you had to overcome this first year?
You name it. You know, it was pretty amazing how everything kind of started falling together because struggle's not the right word. We really worked hard for 3 years to make this brand come alive and to make the energy a reality. And I'll go back to one of the things I said about Tulsa. Tulsa, we worked that deal out, and I've had this question posed to me just recently. We're a minority partner in that. I don't have any control over that organization. We wanted to give some feedback to them on the business side because of our experience, but we have no control competitively over them. They're solely their own operating entity along those lines. And there's nobody. I cannot wait to kick their ass next year, quite frankly, when it's all said and done, for that reason. So I'm pretty excited about that rivalry. So it's awesome. So when we go back, dial back, 3 years ago, we negotiated with 2 separate venues, one for 2 years, and it didn't work out. And then another one we lost out to the competitive group, and then we landed at Pribble, which was our I think really, it couldn't have been better. It was, I always say it had to be some sort of divine intervention because it was the best starting point for us and for the energy. And so from a business standpoint, we had all these things really going against us. And the faith of my staff to stick with it and to keep developing it, to have guys like Jason come to me and say, hey, I'd like to be involved in this. I believe you guys are going the right direction. So for us to roll out the brand and to be so widely accepted, actually, it was roughly in the same time frame. And just to see the massive success, and then to have, during that whole process, Tim McLaughlin come on as a partner. There were all these really tough competitive things that were out there, and it just seemed that, and that's a reason why we included the state motto in there. Our hard work was constantly rewarded. The Labor Omni Vincit, it epitomizes what we went through to get here today, and continue to see, and what we're dedicated to make this franchise work and to get ourselves to that highest goal. So I mean, there was a lot that went into it, from the branding piece to the venue and the time crunch. I was scared to death for these 2 guys because we brought them in late and said, "Here's your money. Go run. Go make this happen." And they came together and made it happen. I mean, it was even when we hired Jimmy, It was a 3-hour conversation. We met him, what was it, 3 days after or a week after, I think, roughly sometime. Yeah, 4 or 5 days after he'd won the championship. We sat down with him 3 hours, and he and I looked at each other, and John, who was with us, said, "This is our guy. This is who we want. We want in Oklahoma City." And the affiliation with Kansas City, it all just kind of fell into place just like it should. So it was always, while nail biting it sometimes, it really, everyone's hard work was rewarded. I'm really proud of that fact because they did such an awesome job.
Jason, from your standpoint, from a general manager standpoint, I know you had a lot of obstacles. You were working almost 24 hours a day sometimes, getting players eligible, flying paperwork to another country, getting paperwork from another country. You had a lot to do.
That was the easy stuff. The fact that I couldn't have a beer after the game, that sucked. But probably the biggest challenge, and people laugh because I think it'll continue to evolve until our market evolves, facilities. So, I mean, all the other stuff is controllable. We can find players, we can work those types of deals. Facilities don't pop up overnight. And I don't just mean a downtown stadium. It became very evident to me probably within the first 60 days of being in with Bob that he wasn't going to stand for anything that was less than an MLS standard. And I mean that in terms of how we took care of the players, in terms of how we presented ourselves as a team, that he wanted to be able to look out and our team could stand right next to an MLS team and nobody'd be able to tell the difference other than if they just knew which one was and which one wasn't. And so when you talk about things like practice facilities and all those types of things, when you start to set that type of a standard out there and there really hasn't been a professional team in the market, we're continuing to try and cobble things together. We continue to do some of that today because, again, those things don't just pop up overnight. But we really kind of forged our motto instead just to say, just keep making it better every single day. And so that's really what we continued to try and do. And so some of those were small steps where we said, okay, here's the Band-Aid we've got to put on it right now, all the way out to some of the bigger steps where we started to say, let's really ramp up the timeline and try and make this thing happen. And so we're continuing to try and find facilities that show people in the Oklahoma City community what true professional soccer looks like. And we want that because we also recognize that's what's able to bring in the right types of guys. I mean, that's another, when you start to talk about all other things being equal or a lot of teams being out in the market, some of those small things along the way, then at that point that they say, absolutely, if that's in line or this one of the pieces there. And I don't take that just from my own feedback. Again, I take that from trying to bring players back to the market, and I listen to the things that they're saying that kept them here, and I listen to the things that say, I'm looking out there, or they have this, because that's really the feedback that we need to try and continue to raise that bar.
Let's stay with you, Jason. Talk about a lot of expansion next year. Can you talk about the teams coming in if you know who they are, and how about game times? Will they change? Will they not change? Game dates? What's going to happen next year?
Yeah, so again, obviously the status of the USL Pro over this last season has been kind of a big topic for those that kind of study the league. And is expansion too fast? Is it too big? Is it, all those types of things? What I can say is I think the league is in a better state than it's ever been before. And I think that's an exciting piece. And somebody said to me, wow, is it just an MLS reserve league at that point? It's actually funny. If you look at the expansion that's come into the league, it's almost 50-50. So there are people who are buying in and saying, no, absolutely, we believe in this model, just like the Energy did, as being the right move. So when you talk about Colorado Springs, when you talk about Austin, when you talk about all those types of teams, those aren't MLS teams that came in and said, we're trying to put a reserve team in here. Now, when somebody else comes back and tries to convince me that an MLS reserve team can't make it a solid league, and the only freaking team I couldn't beat last year it didn't have anything to do with Sacramento. If you go in aggregate, we were able to take them out of the park. It was that damn LA Galaxy team that seemed to have our number. And so it showed you a level, though, at which those teams were going to kind of bring to the league, that they weren't just coming in and saying, okay, was this guy going to come here and is he going to rehab here, those types of things. They wanted a league in which it was a proper league that they could go try and compete for a championship. They wanted a league where they could play inside of stadiums, in front of stadiums. I mean, there's nothing more flattering than the new Seattle GM calling me and saying, well, how do you guys get 3,000, 4,000, 5,000? Because that's the model that we want for these players. We want to figure out how to work with our supporter group to talk about the future of the club. And if you look at what some of those teams are doing, like Real Salt Lake or the Real Monarchs who came out the other day, they're actually giving ownership back. Again, why are they doing that? Again, because they want the support of those teams to raise up and raise the level of the team. So Again, Jimmy threw out the number 22, 24. There's some announcements that haven't been made, and we're waiting to kind of see a few of the final, letters of intent and final things as they make it through the attorneys. What I do know is that there's great growth there, and probably the most exciting thing for us, most exciting thing for me as a GM is that we don't have to fly to the West Coast every single weekend. But the second most exciting piece of that is that we have people now that we can actually get on a bus. I mean, we tried to plan that last year, and we went, where's the bus trip? Where do we get everybody rallied up and we go make a weekend out of it? Well, now the decision is, okay, well, Tulsa, that's a no-brainer, but wouldn't it be cool to spend the weekend in Austin maybe too? Because it's not a bad town to spend at least a weekend in. So we see a lot of those types of opportunities, and even some of those maybe that aren't getting positioned with us are reaching out to us and saying, using St. Louis for an example, saying, how can we have one of these flyover state rivalries where we're coming down and we're doing things, not just when we compete day to day, but how do we bring bigger exhibition games along with us too? How can we get some, really use our synergies as being those central states? So I think there's a lot of excitement. I think, there's a lot of belief in the league. And there's most importantly, more than anything that I've seen, and I've listened to Bob talk about it, there's a lot of strong ownership groups coming in. So a lot of excitement for people who've done professional sports and know how to make things a better environment than they maybe were in some of the past states.
With 2015 coming up, Jason, at Taft Stadium, will the south end zone, Danielle wants to know, will the south end zone supporter section be assigned seating, or will be first come, first served?
That's actually an interesting question, because we've been having kind of an internal debate. So we said, do we put some numbers on the seat here? Because we'd heard a little bit of feedback in the past who said, when I came into the supporter section last year, there really wasn't a seat there left for me, because there was somebody with a drum and a flag who were kind of taking up 2 or 3 seats, and where was I really supposed to sit at? And so pretty quickly, sometimes you get a little reactionary, and you go, okay, a couple of people want this. They want to say, this section should be assigned seating so everybody knows what they've got. Then I swing back over to the other side, though, and I start to hear people say, no, that's not really what we want in our area. I think it even has the possibility of having what I'm going to call kind of a hybrid. And what I mean by that is really our intentions are to work with the supporter groups and kind of say, well, what do we want here? Is it more about having a specific seat, or is it more about you being able to block off, this section of, let's call it 250 seats, but we got to be able to figure out how do you identify those 250 seats? Because we want to own that section. We want to know that we've got that and that we can come do our own thing. But then maybe inside of that, it's really GA. We don't care if, we're not going to police that. That group's happy there. Now, on the flip side, and again, is it just the supporter groups who make those decisions? No, not necessarily, but obviously that's a huge decisioning factor. That's kind of been blessed if you go on the website, it says right there, this is the supporter section. And so we really want to make those decisions based on the feedback that we get. But again, I think it could be either way, or it could even be in a hybrid. The most important part to us is to try and accomplish what the groups that sit in that section want. And then we figure it out from there. So again, it's another one of those popular topics, and it's why we love having forums like this, because now we've got that question, we go, we need to sit down and talk about that. We need to get some real specific feedback so we can make sure that we're not just making assumptions, but we are truly carrying out what the groups. And will we ever please everyone? No, probably not, because we're probably not doing the right things at that point. But we definitely want to have good, solid feedback and know what the majority want. And more specifically, like I said, inside the stadium, we want different areas for different types of fans. And so we want to make those areas really relate to the people that they're kind of intended for.
Bob, you talked about some of the amenities for the stadium that are going to be kind of cool. How about tailgating before the game at Taft Stadium, the parking situation at Taft Stadium? What's that looking like right now? But specifically, can people tailgate?
Well, yeah. I mean, why wouldn't we? But we're all, it's not just that. I mean, obviously that's a component, but we're also wanting to create some areas for the supporter groups prior to the game as well, doing some different things for whoever it is that we can be a part of. I mean, we want to create a really fun, family-friendly environment. And one of the things we went through in terms of the stadium and our thought process was identifying the different demographics of our fan, and then tailoring our quote-unquote zones in the venue for those specific demographics. And you heard Jason mention it a little bit earlier. That's why we have a family zone, the supporter zone. We have a club zone, all these different zones that are designed around those demographics. And so we want to create all different types of pieces of entertainment and areas of enjoyment that they can come participate in.
All right, let's move to this. Jason, we talked about it. What's so special about support groups, and especially the grid?
Again, I mean, obviously, you always get a little bit of a fondness for like I said, whoever comes on first and helps you to create something. So we feel like we've been growing along the way. My biggest heartache and my biggest hassle and my biggest pride at the same time, absolutely. I think those guys know it. They all joke about the first time that they got something taken away from them, and I marched over and said, "Hey, give those kids back their toy," because it kind of was that at that point. But again, it was a learning process. But anybody who's really studied what's unique about the game of soccer, and I'll kind of go in a different direction. It was literally a story I was just reading today in Canada where there was a hockey team who is now using their soccer supporter group to try and bring them in and try and create that type of an environment there. Another, obviously, a great partner of ours that we talk to a lot, Sporting Kansas City. And we don't just talk to them because they've got a great stadium environment, but by the way, the SEC in college football is out now talking to them about how do you create the type of environment that you do. And so it's a game changer inside the world. That's where the passion comes from. That's where the kind of blood, sweat, and tears come from. Do we want them to run off every kid where they're scared to death? No, absolutely. I remember telling the story before, and I actually still use it when I talk to some of the folks, and I said, my biggest, like if I was to see a dream come true, it would be for like 3 or 4 little 12-year-old kids to be elbowing their mom and say, I want to do shirts off second half. Doesn't mean I necessarily want them to say everything that they said along the way with it, but I want them to literally look up at those groups and say, that's, I want to be a part of that. And then their mom also not to go, oh, no, I don't want to ever see you be like that. So again, we recognize that we can't have the stadium environment that we want and we envision. You even saw us kind of cheating off of it, whether it was fair to them or not, at the end of last year, because the surveys said to us, hey, that dude with the drums is pretty cool. Can he kind of come over here and help us out a little bit? Can he help kind of get the crowd going and get the chants going and that type of thing? And as I think back on that experience, I do still kind of think back to them and I go, gosh, was that fair to them or not? Was that their job or not? They were certainly willing to come help try and create that, but we also want to cheat, we want to cheat off the positive experience. So some other examples of things you might see over the course of the next year is chant sheets. Now, will every chant and everything that's said in there be on the sheet? Probably not. Could it be the use of the video board? Maybe. Again, it's one of those where soccer is a little bit unique because there's no stoppages and people don't want to hear the announcer over the top of a soccer game all the time trying to get a cheer going either. So you have to be smart and you have to be clever for it to still be authentic. But I think we've learned and we're willing to try things. And some of them we may stub our toe as well and go, ooh, really didn't like that. The surveys usually tell us that or somebody comes over and tells us. But they are a cornerstone piece. And ultimately, the biggest thing that I've learned is as I've stepped back, when I talk about what our goals are for the game and what our goals are for the city, their goals are perfectly aligned. Now we just have to talk about how our paths run concurrently to get us there. Because ultimately they are. They're their own group, and that's what's unique and neat about them at the same time, is we're not here to control that group. We're here to try and make it better. It's why they get tables at our events to be able to say, I don't know, promote yourself. And maybe not everybody's for you, but we do support you. But we also know deep down inside they want to support us as well.
All right, next question is for Bob. Bob, does the club plan to bring in some exhibition games? I know Jimmy's already kind of talked about it a little bit, but does the club, I know it's difficult because a lot of these major league clubs, at least, some may be playing 3 games a week with CONCACAF Champions League games, MLS regular season games. I know it's difficult to try to get those teams in here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We want to bring in KC, number one, and we're working diligently to make that happen, and hopefully we'll be close to getting that done. But we want to do, one of the ideas, and I've told our staff, I said, let's dream big. Let's go big or go home when it's all said and done. So, U.S. men's national team, what can we go out there and get from an exhibition standpoint, and bring some quality events here to help promote the sport, and get these teams in here. So, I don't see us going as far as Manchester United by any means, but I think we can definitely get some really good teams in here and create a really cool, exciting environment. So yeah, well, it's definitely in the plans, and going to try and hopefully make that happen as a kind of a season opener type of event, and then maybe another one later on in the season as well.
Let me also ask you, Bob, what is the Green Club?
The Green Club. The Green Club is kind of, you've heard me reference club members. Green Club is a concept we're currently defining exactly what that is, but we want to create a specialized kind of type of membership environment where you have access to special amenities, things such as maybe a game briefing by the coaching staff, or access to the area in the north, a beer garden that's there. Create some really special, unique experience pieces that you get to be a part of. So we're working on kind of really putting some effort in defining what that environment looks like. And I think we've got it just about rounded out in order for us to maybe roll it out, but we want to make sure it's done and it's done right. So we're kind of putting some defining touches on it, but it'll be something of that environment that'll have special seating packages that go along with it. Not dissimilar to some of the pod packages you saw around the stadium, around the field, kind of but be an all-inclusive type of environment.
Next question is for Jason, but I'm actually going to have Jimmy, I think, answer this one. It's more of a soccer question, and it's one of the more popular questions, actually, that comes in. Why does the clock stop at 45 minutes and 90 minutes before stoppage play begins?
Well, you're a ref. You should know that.
I do. I don't want people to know how much time I'm going to add.
Well,
we already know what happens when you announce something and you don't play it.
Well, only the referee knows the extra time.
If you're going to announce stoppage time, you must play that stoppage. That's all I'll say.
Well, we all know what happened against Arizona.
That's what I'm saying.
That was a big mistake, but my point is only the referee knows the extra time.
Correct.
And you can add extra time in the extra time too. Yeah. But as far as I know, you can't cut anything off.
No,
and
you
that's
can't.
What happened against
should I answer my own question? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So, no, really. If you add 3 minutes, you must play a minimum of 3 minutes.
Yes.
Whether that 3 minutes starts at 48 or whether it starts at 45 because of what happens, whether you have a PK at the 45th minute and it takes you to the 48th minute, that's when your stoppage time starts.
Yeah.
So stoppage time needs to be played, and so you don't put it on the scoreboard because it always changes. I mean, you announce 3 minutes, you have an injury, you can play 3 more minutes. Yep. So that's why.
I think it's fair enough the clock stops. Yeah.
Any other rule changes you'd like to possibly see or you may know about that could occur coming up next season?
I would like to see less substitution too. Currently it's 5 subs in the USL.
And MLS is 3.
Yes, and I think sometimes it's killing the rhythm of the game. You see 2 teams making 10 subs in the second half. That's killing the rhythm. If you have momentum, you're pretty annoyed about all those subs, and I'm not a fan of 10 subs in one half.
Right.
What happens a lot of times.
No, because they usually wait till the second half to sub, correct?
Yeah, correctly.
Because players, get tired, get injured, just change, the game changes.
Very often,
you have to change your formation, stuff like that?
Yeah, you want to change something, somebody's tired, or you want to change something tactically. It depends. Some players having a poor performance, you want to get them out too.
Let's talk about formation. I know you experienced with several, you had several formations last year. Is there some kind of formation you specifically like?
Well, I won the championship twice in my career, and both times with a 4-3-3. So, of course, I'm a fan of a 4-3-3. I don't think in the beginning of the season, I think my hopes were probably a little bit too high. The team haven't played together for ever. And the group of guys we put in, they're very committed to the way we wanted to play. We struggled a little bit in the beginning. We changed things a little bit, and we had a good run. I think in 13 games, we only had 1 loss. Unfortunately, we couldn't finish the season strong. But back to the formations, that's something we talk about day in and day out. It's also what you have available of the players. Some players fit better to a 4-4-2. My hope and my plan right now is probably a 4-3-3.
Yeah. With the increased number of games that could occur next season with the expansion, Last year, we saw some back-to-back games, and at the pro level, that's very difficult for a player to play back-to-back 90 minutes on 2 consecutive nights. Will we be playing back-to-back games next year?
Well, there's a chance. You know, the schedule is not out yet, and if there is back-to-back games, we're just going to deal with it. But you know, it's not the best. You know, it's not like hockey. You have substitutes all the time, every 45 seconds.
Yeah.
You're on the field. A lot of the guys are on the field for 90 minutes. And the day after, you know, they got heavy legs. It's not ideal to play the next day.
Can you kind of talk about to some of these people what actually you go through to get these players recovered for the next day or the next game? Because there's a lot that goes into it.
Right after the game, you know, it's important you eat the right thing and you do the right stuff. What we do when we travel and doing back-to-back games, it's ice bath. Early in the morning, we go in the hot tub and the cold tub, get the fluids going in the legs. And I think we've done a pretty good job with it. You know, the guys have been extremely fit over the season, so we've not been struggling with the fitness.
All right, let's switch questions.
I have
here.
a question
Go ahead.
to
Go
Jason.
ahead.
He can answer the question.
Yeah.
You said about with that shirt off, that kid coming to the mom with the shirt off in second half.
The 12-year-olds.
Yeah, can the mom not join the shirt off? That depends. Okay.
We're almost done here, Jimmy. Hold on.
almost done?
Hold on. Okay, we're almost done.
You want me to keep going?
I got to keep my eyes on the field at all time.
Yeah.
My eyes don't wander. I can't. I got to keep my eyes on the field.
You know why it's good Tulsa is coming in the league as well?
Why?
Every state needs a number 2.
Oh, nice. All right, Jason, a couple more questions. We're going to wrap this up. Is it true the Energy will have a women's team?
You know, at this time, we're kind of looking at it. Again, it's kind of like I talked about the youth academy side. It's like I've talked about lots of different, and I think there was, and somebody kind of pointed it to me earlier, I think there's even a question about an indoor team, and I'm not sure if somebody was asking if that's a Soccer City indoor team or if they're talking about actually a professional team in the winter session. But we, like I said, we continue to look at every single possibility that's out there and kind of what the voids in the market are. And if we feel like there's a fit there for the market, then we're actually going to, you know, make those moves and try and make those things happen. Sometimes that'll be inside of our control totally. Sometimes it won't. But we definitely want to continue to try and make those things happen for the city if that's what they want. And just like we did with the men's team, were we ready for MLS last year? Certainly not in a 45-day preparation period, that's for sure. But as we make those moves, we want to try and do it at the highest possible level as well. And so we always kind of say, okay, well, maybe there's something out there, and can we continue to raise the bar, whether that's opportunities for those youth players. So again, we talk a lot about with Sporting Kansas City about the academy, again, lack of a development academy. It doesn't mean that we can have a development academy here tomorrow, because those things don't happen overnight. But I mean, there was an example of a player who was ready, and we sent up to the development academy a year ago. And he's been living up there kind of during that period in time. So we want to keep raising that bar both for the city and then really for the sport as well. Is women certainly a demographic we look very heavily at? Absolutely. Again, when you look at the number of youth female players, it's one of the most common questions that we get actually coming out of kind of the youth side when we're doing our camps and doing all those types of things is there something for the females? What do they aspire to? Would you guys be willing to put a team in? And so, like I said, if the market conditions are right and the right opportunities present themselves, I know that I've got an ownership group that's behind me and committed to keep trying to make those things happen.
One final question before we wrap up. This is for both of you or either of you. What kind of security will be around Taft Stadium for those who are coming to the game next year?
I'll kind of start again, and obviously you saw even some people even kind of joked about the number of police that we had even at Bishop McGuinness. And then I quickly pointed out that we had the grid that we had to deal with, so we needed a few extras there, right? But they became a good working relationship. We've got a great relationship, obviously, with the city police force in terms of not just, I mean, and I use another example. There was a car that was probably pretty quickly going to get towed because of where it had parked, and our police force didn't just say, oh, just get that guy out of here. I mean, they made a monumental effort to try and find the person, get their car moved, and it was not in the most auspicious spot to try and move in the middle of a game. And so we're going to continue to do things to improve. It's also, you know, one of the things that we've talked a lot about is just what I'll call cleaning up the neighborhood. And what I mean by that is, you know how many times when you start to create the right situation by sprucing things up, by working with the neighborhood associations, by doing all those types of things to make it a better environment. When you raise that standard, now all of a sudden the rest of the community starts to raise that standard around it as well. So, I mean, I'll let Bob, but again, we will do whatever is necessary from a security and police force standpoint. But again, for us, it's also about continuing to make those improvements around, not just directly at Taft Stadium, and not just directly at those two schools that we're already sinking a lot of things into, but even working with those neighborhoods and those associations that are around that general area as well.
Yeah, and to add to that, I mean, we run all types of events, and run all types of from the sports franchises to the special events. We're going to make it as secure as it needs to be. We're probably going to overdo it. McGinnis is a great example of that, and just to make sure that we're covering all our bases. And I'll say that, and then I'm going to say this: is there's a great misnomer about the neighborhood that's around that area. There is actually a fairly middle to high income family base that lives in that area. One of the head architects on our stadium development piece that we've talked to, he lives there. Actually, he lives 2 blocks down and 1 block over from the stadium. Another individual that works for another architectural firm that I know lives literally behind the stadium. Her and her family have lived there for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So there's this undercurrent that people have this perception that the area is unsafe. It's actually it's becoming a higher income neighborhood. People are coming in and taking over a lot of those houses and renovating them and doing a lot with it. So it hasn't fully filled out yet, but there's a lot more there than you think there is. The commercial side is starting to pick up. You can see the extension coming down 23rd in terms of the businesses and things that are becoming a part of it. And to Jason's point, we hope to be the bookend on that area and that district, is that we set a really nice anchor for further development in and around that area from a commercial real estate standpoint, and really enhance that neighborhood, because people are already living there and they're enhancing it themselves. So it's been pretty impressive.
Jason,
hopefully a bar.
one quick question for Jason, because I forgot from John Clavo. It goes back to teams. We have an indoor team.
And again, I kind of talked about that earlier, and again, I'm not sure if that one is a joking one about a Soccer City men's indoor team. I don't think those that play indoor soccer would like it very much if we brought most of our guys down to the indoor arena. Plus, Coach doesn't tend to like them playing at 11 o'clock or midnight at the indoor facility. But again, it's like I said, if it's truly talking about is that a good fit, are there indoor leagues that are out there? Absolutely. Do we have a sister team or a sister city in Tulsa that has one of those that we can certainly look at as a business model and say, is it helping? And especially with a Tulsa team going in there as well, the questions that I start to ask about it is, I don't know, does it help me have more guys stay here year-round? As I talk to my players who are staying here year-round, I say, oh gosh, are you interested in playing indoors? Is that a selling factor? Because those are the pieces for me. The one thing that I always do continually point back to our staff and point back to everyone is all these other things that we do start with this men's professional team as the pinnacle. When you talk about the soccer side of the world, we always start with that as the decision point, and then we work our way down from there. And if it can be a nice complement or a nice supplement to that and it makes sense, then absolutely, we'll start investigating and we'll see if we can go there. But if it doesn't, if it either counteracts that or it really doesn't do anything for that top piece for us, then we start to go, gee, do you realize we've got like 900 things going on already that we need to do? So that's how we start to prioritize it. So, my initial instinct would be to kind of step back and watch the Tulsa market a little bit in terms of how those two teams interact with each other and see if there's actually players that are kind of floating back and forth between the two, and see if they're being able to bring some players in because of having that there to supplement. And then obviously, he's going to say to me, don't ever put me at a competitive disadvantage. So if that becomes an advantage for people, then we'll probably end up there. But if it's just another thing along the way just to have, then maybe we don't.
All right, let's wrap this up with a few final comments from all three of you. First, Jason, why don't you go first, then Jimmy, and then Bobby, if you want to wrap it up.
Yeah, biggest thing for me, guys, again, first of all and foremost, thank you for coming out. It's always an interesting thing to see of the evenings and those types of things, who will show, who will be involved in the process and all those types of things. We need the fans' input. So you're going to continue to see a lot of those surveys. You'll see them in shorter bursts because we've finally realized that when we send like a 900 question survey, sometimes that doesn't work out as well. So you're kind of seeing things come in bite-sized chunks. Sometimes it's as simple as we do really well in social media and we're just putting something out there and saying, make a comment on it. But we need your feedback. We're not scared of that. We don't think we're perfect. We don't think we know all. And I can promise you that every single one of those is taken in and utilized to try and put the best product out there for the fans that we can. So you're going to continue to see that. And that's why you'll see us never kind of sit still with some of our answers. We're going to continue to change and continue to evolve to try and make it better.
Jimmy?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for coming today, and thanks a lot for your support during the season. I truly believe there's a good reason to be very, very excited right now, what's going on with Energy FC on and off the field. For me, I think we have some very, very exciting things going on now with the team on the field, and I can't wait till next season. Thank you.
You know, I think we've kind of said it all here. When we started this, however many, 3.5, 4 years ago, and the first concept of the idea, I had no idea what it would turn into. But it has been the coolest experience of my life, quite frankly. It has been the most awesome thing to see, as hard as we've worked from beginning to end, to see where we've come and where we are today, and then the end goal of where we want to be, and to see the fruition of it. I think it's the coolest thing in the world that we've been able to pull together the soccer community and be inclusive of all the youth programs and try and embrace every soccer fan in Oklahoma City. I mean, in reality, that's what we try to do. We want everyone to be on board with what we're trying to accomplish. I think we've got some really cool things leading into the future, not just from the team space, but the league space. The league, I think, is going to get a lot more aggressive, as you've already seen them. We've gone from 14 teams to we'll be almost 24 if everything comes together, if not at least 21 or 22. Doubling our growth, almost doubling our growth, that's pretty impressive for any league. I've been in sports entertainment for a long time, and I've never seen that happen. So just the excitement that is coming down the path for us as a team, as a league, and as a city, and what we have yet to accomplish, and what we can only accomplish as a group working together. Everybody pulling on the same rope, pulling in the same way. Tim and I have this conversation a lot. We are just so excited to have everybody on board pulling in the same direction, trying to get us there. And we're only the vehicle. We can only do so much without everyone's support. And to have the great fan base and the great support and the dedication of the fan base helping us achieve that goal is the most awesome thing and the coolest thing I've ever seen. And like I said, I've worked in the industry a long time, but to see everyone gravitate towards the brand and really come together is just awesome. I just cannot thank all of you enough for the support that we enjoy and everything you've done for us. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Jason. Great panel up here tonight. Great soccer minds. If you can give them a round of applause, appreciate it. They'll be around for a while. The players will be around for a while. We appreciate you guys coming out, and I believe the beer is still back there, Jason.
One last question.
Yes.
There's
A game on Wednesday night at Edmond Soccer Complex at 7 o'clock, and a game Saturday night at 7 o'clock at the Norman Youth Complex, which is on Robinson out east. So.
Two little kind of tidbits on that. Wednesday night, the game in Edmond is on kind of that center pitch main field there. It's a public game. It's not one that we're necessarily putting out there to try and drive a big public audience to, but everybody is wide open. We're also not locking the gates and trying to keep people out. It's kind of one of the nice little tidbits and secrets about coming to things like this is you get in on some little side slice that you go, oh, I didn't know they were going to have an open training on that day, because we don't always push all those things out there to the general public. And then Saturday, they've got a
It will be cold.
One more thing. Don't ever hesitate to ask our organization anything. I have a standing policy that we're going to be as transparent as we possibly can be. Unless it puts us at a strategic disadvantage for one reason or the other, we're an open book when it's all said and done. So don't hesitate to approach us and ask us a question. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Since day one when I started Prodigal and everything that we've ever done, we've always kept that mentality, and we always will. And if we can't tell you something because of a strategic disadvantage, we feel that we can't disclose that, we'll tell you. we can't tell you, and here's why. Now, check in later. Maybe we can feed you that information. So don't ever hesitate to ask me or Jason, Coach, anybody on the Prodigal staff from that standpoint, any of those questions. We'll tell you exactly what we've done, why we've done it, right, wrong, or indifferent, and be as transparent as possible along those lines. So I encourage you to do that at any point in time with us.
All right, thank you guys for coming out.